Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Kelly Green Hour as the Eagles fell in their first preseason game to the Baltimore Ravens 24-7. And I always say we're always so thrilled and excited for preseason to get here. And then after that first game, it's like, let's get to the regular season. That's true, but there's still a couple of things, a couple of good takeaways we could take from week one, which we will talk about. I'm your host, LG Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's up, man?
Well, beyond, as you know, a daughter with a double middle ear infection, things have been good. It's good to have football back. It's good to be talking about stuff, overreacting to stuff, whatever. But, football's back, and that's all that matters. We are less than we're 20 some odd days away, 28, 29 days away. So times are getting much better. We'll say that.
I think we are 26 days away from week one when the Washington Commanders come to Philadelphia to face the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field, 4:30 p.m. kickoff. Before we jump into the week one reaction against the Ravens, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJRL54 and follow the Eagles Pinpull Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pinpull Network. And let us know your thoughts in the chat on the game. Which players were you excited to see, and did they meet your excitement? Which players maybe outshined what you were thinking? Which players didn't live up to par? And let us know that in the chat, and we will discuss. So, Connor, going in, I was really excited about Willie Lampkin. He got to start at center, moved over to guard, and it's funny when you see the comparison, and Ross Tucker talked about it, when Lampkin went to right guard and he was lined up against Markel Bell. He was about a full foot shorter than him, but man, Willie Lampkin played the part. And I think and we talked about it in the offseason, and I think I had him in our, our way too early 53-man roster. I had him on mine, and I don't think he has disappointed at all in camp. He has a real shot to make this team, and being versatile, being able to play guard, being able to play center is huge when, you have the Landon Dickerson, injury history. Tyler Steen, you never know. Obviously, Cam Jurgens, injury history. I think Willie Lampkin really, really may have cemented himself, and if he can continue to show that this week and, the joint practices with the Patriots and in the last two preseason games, he's definitely going to make this roster.
Oh, yeah, I think at this point he's making the roster. I don't think there's any doubt. I think he's been the best interior offensive lineman outside of the obvious, locks for the roster, which is Dickerson, Steen, and Jurgens. And I mean, you could probably argue maybe he might even be better than Tyler Steen. It's at this point, it's really tough to say, but it's good to have that versatility. And I can't help but kind of think about him in the light of Jason Kelce. The way he moved to that second level, the way he finishes with such there's that highlight reel play where he's literally taking a guy all the way down the field and then just tosses him to the field. I mean, I had Willie Lampkin on my way too early 53-man roster as well. And I think he hasn't disappointed, and the versatility is key. I think the versatility for Drew Kendall was key because Drew Kendall coming into the camp was like, oh, he's probably just a center. How badly do they need a center, exclusively backup center, if there's other people who prove they have the versatility? And now Drew Kendall's moving around as well. So, but Willie Lampkin, you see why they hopped in and took him from the Rams, and why Rams fans are more angry about the unspoken rule, which Howie's obviously not going to care about this unspoken rule that exists. But you can see why. If you saw what we see, why did you even attempt to open him up to the prospect of waivers?
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned that play that was going around social media. Like, when they say block to the whistle, he was blocking to the whistle. So I appreciated seeing that. I mean, and you can even talk about Jake Majors, another guy at the center position. So they are building depth at the interior offensive line. We know that we know who the 5 starters are, and they like to keep, anywhere between 9, 10, and 11 guys on that offensive line. So it'll be an interesting and fun challenge for Howie Roseman when they're putting the roster together of who they want to keep. I was
Well,
also
with that in mind, I want to note about that. Like, we cut two guys who immediately were picked up on waivers the next day in Daquan Wright and I can't, the offensive lineman's name slipping me. But the fact that already we're letting guys go and they're immediately getting picked up means that obviously there's going to be some very difficult decisions, and we always like to believe, we have the best and deepest roster, and you don't want to expose anybody to waivers and stuff. But I mean, the fact that this early on in preseason and in camp season, you have guys already getting picked up is probably a good sign for some of the pieces that you have on the roster.
Yeah, Wright was the undrafted tight end signed out of Ole Miss. Obviously, Goddard and Stowers and Munt are going to make the team. It would have been I was a big fan of Wright. I thought that he could potentially catch on as a practice squad tight end. Anybody but Calcaterra, who knows what's going to happen there. But we'll see what happens. But I think it's safe to say, that Goddard, Stowers, and Munt are going to be the guys that fill the tight end room. And the one thing with Stowers is, look, don't expect him to come out there and be in the blocking tight end. He's going to be your receiving threat. He's going to be the slot type of receiver. Munt will be out there for blocking, and Goddard, to the extent in which he can do it, will also be out there for blocking. Another guy that I was interested in seeing and got his first ever action of professional football was Uar Bernard, and even Josh Weru. But Uar Bernard, I mean, he showed that even though he's never played football before, has never put pads on, probably doesn't have the best technique thus far, he showed a lot of raw power in the couple of plays. And was he out of position sometimes? Sure. You anticipate that happening for somebody who's never ever been on the field. He's being blocked for the first time in a real game. He's being cut for the first time in a real game. He's got to attempt to make a tackle for the first time in a real game. I think that they were steps. And the one thing you can tell how much trust Clint Hurt has by the Eagles administration, because he is somebody that really advocated for Uar Bernard, which, we always talked about, how long is Vic Fangio going to be here? And when Vic Fangio decides to retire and step away, who's going to take the job? And everybody was talking about Jim Schwartz. Maybe Clint Hurt could be in the running for that, obviously, because if Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni are taking his word for a guy, somebody who he wants to work with, somebody that he wants to groom and build and try to turn into a really good player. If they're going to go out of their way, and I know it was just a 7th round pick, but if they're going to go out of their way and do that and use an asset on them, they have high hopes and maybe a high ceiling on what Clint Hurt can do for this team in the future.
Yeah, I mean, and you say just a 7th round pick. You know how he values those picks. He's always moving and jiving around the draft and picking up picks. Whenever he makes a trade, he's always picking up another future or a later pick in the draft. He never just settles for rarely does he settle 1-for-1 on anything. He really values those picks, and the fact that even he would invest that when maybe there might be a confidence that they could get him as an undrafted free agent, like you said, speaks volumes. And they already let Christian Parker walk, which they're probably damn, I wish we could have kept Christian Parker around. But you can't move on from Vic Fangio. Obviously, that's undoubtable. But next off season, if Vic Fangio possibly considers moving on, Clint Hurt is definitely somebody who was highly regarded in previous roles with previous teams, extremely highly regarded, clearly from Sirianni, from Laurie to Roseman to Sirianni, all the way down. They clearly see a high regard in him, because I'm sure he had a say in Joshua Waru as well. And the fact that, there's so many way too early 53-man roster predictions where it's there's a good chance they keep both of these guys because there's the raw talent, like you said, is there. Yes, is the first play of Bernard's career kind of ugly because the guy gets stood up, but at the same point, he gets stood up in this awkward position and is still powering back this 200, 300, 250, 300-pound offensive lineman. Yeah, I mean, you have to remember this guy's never played a snap of football. That was his first snap of football. So I'm interested as well to see who they keep. One of them they can keep under the international program, which doesn't count towards a roster spot. The other, they actually have to keep using one of their 53-man roster spots if they opt to keep both of them.
And that international spot's only a practice squad, so you can go from 16 to 17. So you would have to cut one or both of them, when roster cuts happen before the regular season, and hope that they don't get claimed to bring them back. So that's going to be something interesting to see going forward. And I was like, a lot of people were wondering if Bernard would even get into the game. And I thought he was going to the whole time. That's why in the poll I put out, I had him as one of the options. I thought he was going to have a chance, and I think he got 13 or so snaps, and he was proud of himself, and he should be proud of himself. Like he went out there, kind of went out of his comfort zone and did something that he's always wanted to do.
He played 15 snaps and Waru played 30, which rightfully so. Like if you want to understand,
he got a couple of pressures too.
Yeah, they gave him one QB hit here over on your favorite site PFF, but obviously that doesn't totally constitute, like, if you're collapsing a pocket and you're creating some sort of pressure. To me, that still counts as something, and Waru was there on a couple of occasions, and that's really impressive. And at the end of the day, like, 15 snaps is 15 snaps, and to think that you wouldn't give them any snaps, this is the time to give them snaps and see how they look and see what needs to be worked on. And Bernard, like, at one point he leaves the field and he goes right to Clint Hurt, and they're working on technique. Well, we can only assume they're working on technique and like next steps and what do I need to do better? What do I need to do more of off of just a couple of plays? Like, you can tell he's got the drive, he's got the passion, he's got that Philly spirit in him. And that you love to see that in some of these guys, because there's been guys like, I think of a guy like Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith's back in the NFL after coming to us and retiring during the season last year. And now he's back in the NFL. So like, it makes me think,
what does that say about the Eagles locker room last year? That he retired, then wanted to come back and almost signed with the Cleveland Browns and ended up signing with the Atlanta Falcons. Is that more of an indictment on him or more an indictment on the Eagles locker room last year?
I mean, to be honest, and I don't hate saying it, I think it's an indictment on the Eagles locker room last year. I think it's quite clear that there was issues there and that the noise was extremely loud around specifically one guy, but I also think that it's a major positive that they kept so much inside. The only thing that got out was AJ Brown's discontent with the offense and discontent in general with the state of the team. And then even through the offseason, AJ Brown's discontent seemed to be the focal point of things, but nothing else really got out. There wasn't really anything there. And then you see how they are in training camp and you hear about the reporting about how they are and how the team is. It's like night and day. And it's like one guy really did all that. Like, we got Zadarius Smith. He came over and he saw this locker room. He heard about things. He heard stuff. And he said, nah, I'm done. I'm retiring. And then he comes back to be with, like you said, there's a chance he was going to be with the Cleveland Browns. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, he picked the Atlanta Falcons. But the fact that he chose to retire and then come back, I think it speaks volumes. But I think that while it seems like a major negative, I think there's positives to take away from a lot of other things that came from the whole AJ Brown situation.
And I think that's Nick Sirianni's real superpower. And I don't think he gets enough credit for, just for the most part, now not all the time, but for the most part, keeping things in-house. Are there leaks here and there? Yeah, there are leaks, but like we didn't know the true content of the locker room, true extent to which there were problems in the locker room. Were there any other players that you were interested in seeing, and did they meet your expectations, or were you a little just turned off by the way that game went? Like, again, it was an ugly game. The Eagles didn't do anything until Cole Payton came into the game in the fourth quarter and led that touchdown drive, showing pretty much what he did at North Dakota State. Running around, making some passes, had some speed. But was there anybody else that you wanted to see, and did they meet your expectations?
I mean, I was super excited to see Darius Cooper in game action, but obviously now I believe, the quarterbacks did zero justice to Darius Cooper, because Darius Cooper's biggest points of success have been with Jalen Hurts this offseason and in training camp. So I think that speaks volumes that he's got that connection, that rapport with Jalen Hurts. It sucks that he couldn't do a whole lot. He was the leading receiver with 2 receptions and 21 yards. But to that point, it speaks volumes that he's got that rapport with the guy that truly matters, which is Jalen Hurts. And then Jeremiah Trotter he's exceeded expectations. I did not think that you would be sitting there arguing that he might split a significant amount of time with Jahad Campbell this season. And I can see a world where maybe he starts splitting a bit of time with Jahad Campbell this season, just because he stood out so much. But he also, to the same point, he hasn't. He's split. He's played with the first team, the second team, the third team. He's played all around. It'll be interesting to see what the Eagles do. But obviously Jahad Campbell over Jeremiah Trotter, but like his instincts, the way that he plays. I know there's a lot of comparisons to his father. He's not his father, but there's some really good things, and there's a lot of good things to take away from this. And, in a couple of years, when Zach Bond steps out of the picture, is Jeremiah Trotter prepared to step into the picture and be the next guy who's going to step in beside Jahad Campbell in a couple of years' time? Because I could definitely see that.
I was actually going to say that, and I don't think it's a couple of years. I think it's next year. You have to think about, they gave Jordan Davis a big contract. They traded for Gennard. He got a big contract. They gave Jalen Carter a big contract. Quinyon Mitchell is going to get one. We saw what Devin Witherspoon got. That's going to be comparable to what Quinyon Mitchell gets. Cooper DeJean is going to get one. I think this is Zach Bond's last year with the Eagles. And if that's the case, your linebackers will be Jahad Campbell and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Look, Trotter Jr. has been really good. So don't get me wrong. I think he deserves to potentially be on the field. But I think that the instincts and athletic ability of Jahad Campbell are more there so for him than they are for Trotter. Obviously, Trotter has a nose for the football, and when you're learning from your father, who's Jeremiah, who lived, get into the football when he was with the Eagles and then went to Washington and whatnot. Like, he has those instincts. So does he belong on the field? Sure, but unless there's an injury, it's going to be Jahad Campbell and Zach Bond. But I think next year, 2027 season, I don't think Zach Bond's back, and I think it's going to be Trotter and Campbell. And we obviously saw it in the preseason game when they were playing next to each other, and I think that is going to be a nice combination, in the future. But I do think it is Jahad Campbell's going to start. Obviously, if injuries happen, they happen. But we also know that Vic Fangio doesn't give a crap where you were drafted, how much money you're being paid, and all that. So it comes down to what Fangio wants, and I do think Fangio is going to pick Jahad Campbell. I just think he can do a little bit more than Trotter can.
And I know that previous to this, there was the thought process of like, oh, look what Grant Dalpitt got. And then it's like, but I don't think Cooper DeJean's going to come that cheap anymore. I think, the Witherspoon contract and where he plays along the field, the versatility is something that can play to Cooper DeJean's favor. I would just hope, Q and Coop aren't all about the money. But obviously we know that, how he's going to do things. He's going to make things work. He's going to be able to keep both of them there. And the average yearly salary, as we've seen with a guy like, Jalen Carter, doesn't necessarily stand out the same as other people who are seemingly looking to be just the next highest paid guy in line. Because now you look at Christian Gonzalez and it's like he's just going to be the next highest paid guy. But how do you make it work? Is it going to be $33.5 million and a handful of $1 million more guaranteed, or is he looking to really reset the market like some rumors are saying? And then is Q going to be that way and DeJean going to be that way, or are they going to be like, I still want to win, so I understand that I got to sacrifice some dollars, but to the same point, Howie and Laurie do right by their guys, and Laurie's willing to front that money up front and say, you know what, we'll pay you guys and we'll give you more guaranteed up front and we'll make sure you guys are looked after, but we still want to win a championship. So, and then I guess when thinking about the game, I was intrigued to see what Eli Stowers would be like. I've taken a lot of heat on our X feed for my comments about Eli Stowers, but I think that it's important to note at the end of the day, I'm not saying he can't become that. I'm saying he's going to need to be insulated for a couple years. And there are a lot of guys, undersized tight ends, who just haven't translated to the NFL as an all-around tight end. That's not to say that he can't fit into this scheme and this system. This scheme and system calls for multiple tight ends at many different times in the game. I just think And we saw it last year with Grant Calcaterra and stuff when he had to take over for Dallas Goedert. You need a good blocking tight end. You cannot just expose yourself that way. And that's not an indictment on Stowers. That's not an indictment on Calcaterra. Sometimes you just can't do it. You just might not be able to do it. You might not have the build. You might not have the skill. And to me, the thing with Stowers right now is he just doesn't have the willingness. He doesn't have the oomph to his game that a Mund or a Goddard or other people have had coming out, because some people are like, well, Ertz was similar. Ertz was making strides heading into the NFL. And then while he ended up being a primarily receiving tight end, you could trust him in instances. You can't trust Calcaterra. You can't trust Stowers. Like, there's a big difference between those guys. And
you have to remember that Stowers was 2 or 3 years ago as a quarterback.
Exactly. And I agree. And that's one of the biggest things. He's 3 years in to being a tight end. I think there's opportunity there, but like the way that first video looks to me is like, you can't, if that's Jalen Hurts behind you, you can't expose him by just freezing in the moment and then being shoved back. Like, you have to be ready. Like Tank Bigsby has said, that's my guy. I'm going to protect that guy. I'm going to put my life on the line for that guy. That's what a guy like Stowers has to do. It's the mentality, it's the willingness, and the oomph to be like, that's my guy back there. Whether it's Dalton, McKee, or Peyton back there right now, you got to put yourself on the line for that guy. And that's what this offense is going to often call for if this is to continue as a Sean Mannion offense going forward. And then one last note of a position I was really disgusted by was the secondary in general was just so...
The middle of the field was wide open the entire game for the Ravens.
Mm-hmm. It was so ugly. It was so ugly.
The linebackers and the secondary. Like, Keely Ringo held a lot as usual. Did have an interception. Jacorian Bennett got hurt, and they went out and signed Isaiah Bolden after that. So they brought somebody in that knows the secondary coach, and also has kickoff return ability. So I mean, he'll have a tough shot making the team, but like. They saw that performance and were like, yeah, you know what? We need to try to bring somebody else in here. We better hope that Q, Reek, and Coop don't get hurt. That's all I have
absolutely.
to say about
that. That's all it said to me. And like it to me, like Epps showed more value last night not being on that field than anything else. And like you see it, like, safety is a need. The backup cornerback position is probably a need. And if there's guys out there, it probably wouldn't hurt to maybe try. I know that the Eagles like their guys, but I mean, I don't know if Ringo can make this team. And I believe that I had him making the final, my way too early 53-man roster, and you didn't. But after this game, it's totally up for debate. You had a third string quarterback just absolutely roasting you through the game, and you just couldn't make stops. You couldn't make plays. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I think obviously the hope and the expectation is clear that, that the secondary doesn't get banged up and that they stay healthy, and then they don't have to worry about the need or the potential need that lies behind those guys. But Adoree Jackson's still a free agent. Maybe
he might sign with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, why not jump in front of the Dallas Cowboys and say, how about you come over here instead? But my faith is in Q was healthy last year for the most part. DeJean was healthy for the most part last year. And Reek was healthy for the most part last year as well. And hopefully that expectation can stay throughout the season with those guys.
I did have Keely Ringo in mine, and we'll see if I continue. I didn't have Jonathan Jones, but I did put him into my final one, which I've been working on.
I had Jonathan Jones making it. So maybe it was me that didn't have Ringo making it. Or maybe we both did, and I had Jones and you didn't.
Yeah. So my final thing about this game before we jump into the week with the Patriots is, I know it was the very, 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 very vanilla offense from Sean Mannion. He said we're keeping everything close to the vest, which everybody should have anticipated. But I like the fact that he was getting plays in quick. I don't think we had to burn a timeout once. I don't think we had a delay of game once. We weren't breaking the huddle with 10 seconds like we were all of last year. So I do like that. He's getting into that motion, and I hope that they continue. Obviously, it was Andy Dalton and it was Tanner McKee who were both terrible. But I do like that he kind of getting into that rhythm of getting the play call in, knowing again. Last year I always talked about being 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead, and Petullo would call a play, see what the result was, and then go and decide what play he wanted to do. Mannion did not do that on the first time. He was on the field this week. Next week against the Patriots, he'll be in the booth. So it'll be interesting to see if that changes in any respect. But I do like that he wasn't fooling around. He was getting the plays in, allowing the quarterbacks to break the huddle with plenty of time left on the play clock, and to be able to make any adjustments or audibles if needed. So I did like that, and I was impressed in that aspect. Was the offense good? No, but they didn't show anything. They're not going to show anything. This is a totally new offense. You don't want to give the Commanders or anybody else something to prepare for. Obviously, they can look at what the other offenses in the league do because it's similar to the Rams and the Vikings and the Packers, but it's going to be Mannion's twist on it. So I did like that, and him getting the play calls in, and it kind of being like a smooth, no substitution issues. Again, I don't remember any timeouts having to be wasted on the offensive side of the ball. Were there penalties? Sure. Was the offense just mundane and boring? Yes, but kind of the technical work from the coaching staff to get the play calls in, I like that aspect.
Yeah, no, 100%. The fact that, Mannion's willing to try being on the field, being on the booth, and figuring out where am I comfortable, where do I want to be when it comes to regular season to see what I need to see. And, it's not that we didn't see complete nothing. We saw, outside runs. We saw some different concepts that we almost never saw last season, outside zone runs and stuff. So it was really good to see some different things. And, I mean, that was Will Shipley. Imagine Saquon Barkley or Tank Bigsby getting the chance to do plays like that. Those guys can probably break off first down after first down if given that opportunity. So I agree with you with that standpoint. While it was vanilla, there was some different things, and you can see Sean Mannion's willingness to try different things, be different, and kind of move along with what he needs to move along with and do different things with that respect in mind, whereas Kevin Petullo was definitely not that way. So, I mean, the fact that you can do that with the second, third, and fourth string guys in line, guys who are going to end up making this roster, probably speaks volumes to what you're probably going to be able to do with the guys who are going to be on the roster and going to be playing for you week in and week out. It's just Mannion figuring out where am I going to be the most comfortable and where can I have the biggest impact on this game.
Yep, definitely. Now let's move to the New England Patriots, and the Eagles will be actually probably in Foxborough right now as they're going to be having joint practices with the Patriots the next 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, before they play their preseason game Saturday night. And AJ Brown going up against Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Reek Woolen in the defense. It'll be the Eagles offense going up against a pretty good Patriots defense. Obviously, the Christian Gonzalez and Devontae Smith matchup if Schmitty's healthy. You have Milton Williams up against, Juergens and Steen and Dickerson, the former Eagle who won a Super Bowl with the Eagles 2 years ago. So I'm definitely intrigued. And they're going to get more out of these joint practices than they're going to get in any of these preseason games. The Eagles aren't going to play anybody on Saturday against the Patriots. They're not going to play anybody next Friday against the Bengals. So this is where the Eagles are going to get the best look at their starters, at what this offense is going to look like against a legit offense. Against a legit defense, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I'm really interested in the comments about that AJ Brown. What questions are going to be asked to AJ Brown? If you were a reporter, Connor, and you were at those practices, and AJ Brown has his press conference, what's one or two questions that you want to know that you would ask him, whether it be about New England, whether it be about his time in Philadelphia, whether it be why he wanted to leave Philadelphia, whether it be about Jalen Hurts? What are a couple of questions that you want to hear answered by AJ Brown? Will he answer them? Probably not. But I mean, you never know. And look, my thing is, do AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts step up? Do they communicate? Do they say hi? Do they give a hug? We know that Cooper DeJean and AJ Brown were really close. They're going to dap up. They're going to hug each other. What's the interaction between Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown going to be, if there is even one?
Yeah, and I'm not really worried about the interaction between those guys. I think it's become quite clear that there was something that fell apart between those two. Do we need to know the extent of what happened? I mean, I don't really care to know, but if I was there, And I hate stupid media questions. So it's really difficult because you have to make sure you ask the right question. It would be nice to get a comparison. What's your take on being in New England versus Philadelphia? What's your
He did call
vibe on
New
the
England
locker
heaven.
room?
He did call New England
but this was before, like, what, after the first day of practice. Like, now that you've gone further, like, he made that comment about, I wish that they would let Drake May throw more and stuff like that. So he's made some off the cuff comments to make you go, maybe, AJ Brown is AJ Brown and he is what he is, and maybe he is going to care about, don't you be looking Romeo Dobbs weigh 150 times, you better be looking my way 150 times. So it's tough to say, and I think that a lot of Eagles fans and obviously Eagles media for sure hold resentment over AJ Brown and are going to want answers that they're just not going to get the answers out of it. And to me, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We all move on. We're lucky we got something out of it, because you look at some other situations in the NFL, you might not get anything out of a trade. You might not be able to get the chance to deal guy. Look at the Baker Mayfield and Vita Vea instance in Tampa Bay right now. They might not get anything out of either of those guys, and both of those guys might end up walking. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I hate stupid media questions. So I would not. It's hard for me to think about an actual question to ask the guy, because I wouldn't want to be the guy to ask this question, very well articulated, and get zero response out of it. And I think you're not going to get a response, and rightfully so, out of AJ Brown, especially if you're with the Philadelphia media. I mean, I cannot wait to see the complete outpouring of overreaction from Eagles fans, Eagles media, Patriots fans, and Patriots media on social media, because I think everything is going to be put under this insane microscope and is going to be hilarious to watch this week. And it probably will have limited to no impact on what actually happens in the season. So it'll be interesting to see. Like you said, I hope Devontae Smith can get out there and play. Makai Lemon, I mean, I would love to see him, but I don't think we're going to see him. It sucks. And I posted to our X feed, Wicks is going to outperform Lemon this year. And I can't wait to see how great the Philadelphia media reacts to this, because they're going to act like Makai Lemon was this complete waste of a first-round pick, and he has no right being on the Eagles as a first-round pick. He's not going to make it in the NFL, and I still think that Makai Lemon will be just fine no matter how he performs this year. I think there's such an expectation that people perform right away, and I don't necessarily believe that has to happen right away for some guys. It just sucks, because I would love to see Makai Lemon more involved and be able to be out there. But him being healthy, as we saw last year, look at Landon Dickerson. He tried to get himself back ahead of time, earlier than expectation, and look at how that worked out for the entirety of the season for him. Like, it's better to be healthy and be ready to go for the season and use those first handful of games to acclimate yourself to the NFL than to force yourself out there for training camp and, heaven forbid, any type of injury happens. Like, we've seen so many different injuries happening around the preseason camps, preseason and the training camps right now.
And that's why I'm happy that Nick Sirianni's not playing any of our starters, and it's worked. I mean, they made the playoffs 5 years in a row, I think. We're going into year number 6 with Sirianni. So, whatever's working, and they're undefeated in season openers under Sirianni. So whatever he's doing is obviously working. Look, I would ask him, and I know we won't get the answer. I would want to know, like, why did you want to leave Philadelphia? Like, that's it. Just why? And is he going to answer the question? No, but you never know. Maybe
I can already see the amount of times that he's going to smirk and laugh off the question based on how he has been in the past.
He's going to, for sure. But, I mean, that's all I would really want to know is, you won. His reaction to get into New England was like he left the Cleveland Browns. You went to 2 Super Bowls. You had four 1,000-yard seasons. You had to get a stretch where you had 6 straight games with over 125 yards receiving. You won a Super Bowl. You went to 2 Super Bowls. You were all pro, multiple times, Pro Bowl multiple times. It's not like he was going from the worst team in the NFL to New England, which could potentially be the best team. Like, you were going from a top-tier organization, a top-tier team, And, what, like, that's all I would really want to know. Like, I would get it if you were the Cleveland Browns and you were going, you wanted out of there. Understood. I get it. I get wanting to leave the Tennessee Titans and come into I get it. But leaving the Eagles, where you had a bunch of success, is it really all about numbers? Like, that's it. You won a Super Bowl. Is that you don't care about winning multiple Super Bowls? You just wanted to win. You got your one, and now you just want to go and get the numbers to get into the Hall of Fame. Again, he would never answer the question, but that's kind of my big takeaway.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can word that question extremely well, and I'm sure that question is going to be asked 2 or 3 different ways in very poor fashion, as we know that the media is very good at doing. But there are definitely ways that you can ask that question and probe and hopefully get some sort of reaction or, body language out of it that tells you all that you need to know. And I think at the end of the day, there's some personal vendettas, some personal instances, whether it be with Petula, whether it be with Hurts, whether it be with Roseman, whoever it might be. There's some personal vendettas. And I think that A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, because I'm sure Hurts will be asked about his relationship with A.J. Brown and things near the end, that they'll just respectfully decline to respond to, and it is absolutely fair for them to do so. And it should mean nothing more than there's likely something there, but there's no need to take it beyond that, because the media is very tough on players and tough on getting answers, but some things are just better left unanswered. And this feels like one of those things that's going to be better left unanswered and will remain unanswered through this handful of days that they're all together and doing these joint practices.
Definitely agree with that. All right, so going to the game, the Eagles aren't going to play any starters. I highly doubt the Patriots will play starters. Again, they're going to get their best work the next 2 days in the joint practices. Who are 1 or 2 players that you're interested in seeing? Let's try to go off of different players than we were focusing on for the first game against the Ravens. Who are you looking forward to seeing in the game and seeing if they can kind of put a stamp and potentially find a way to make the 53-man roster?
Let's start offensively, and then we'll go defense. I'm going with Elijah Moore, and I go there because Johnny Wilson, yet again, I think he does too, because Johnny Wilson, yet again, was healthy at practice, missed the game, needs to be in those games. I think you can't understate how important it is. This is year 3, and this guy continues to have something that just isn't working. And he's like, that big blocking wide receiver, but he can't even be out there to show, can he be the blocking wide receiver? Can he catch a few passes when you need him to catch a few passes? He hasn't even been able to prove that to us. Whereas Elijah Moore, based on all intents and purposes of what we're hearing from camp, is doing well. He's making plays where he needs to make plays, and being the wide receiver 4 or 5, if you make 25, 30 catches on your 35 to 40 targets for 300 to 500 yards and maybe a tutty or 2 here or there, that's perfect. And Elijah Moore has proven capable of making plays at the NFL level, being a wide receiver that you can trust at the NFL level. Johnny Wilson, I already said it on our social media, I think it was today or yesterday, I could see some Phantom IL stint again, because I just feel like they want to find something in him. They want to figure something out with him, but something just isn't working with him, and I just cannot pinpoint at this time. I'm not at practice. I don't see what's going on. I don't see the vibe between the coach and staff and Johnny Wilson and stuff. So I don't know, because there's not a whole lot even from the media that's coming out about Johnny Wilson. It's just the fact that he missed his first preseason game started getting the media talking about what's going on. Like, this guy isn't being protected because he's making the roster. Something's up again, and that's weird to me. So he's definitely hurt, and I think like Elijah Moore and Johnny Wilson, like that matchup's the one to watch, because that's the one that I think is going to really end up being, the indicator. Do they keep 5 wide receivers? Do they keep 6 wide receivers? That is the indication to me. Do they do the Phantom IL stint with Wilson and keep 5 wide receivers and say, or 6 wide receivers? Well, because it could be the difference between 6 and 7, honestly, because I have it as Wicks, Smith, Lemon, Cooper, Brown, and Moore or Wilson. Could they just phantom IL Wilson to have the chance to keep Moore and see what happens? I don't know. That's the matchup that intrigues me right now.
Yeah, it's going to be intriguing to see how many wide receivers they do keep. Mine is, and I don't even know if he's going to play, and it's because I wanted to, and I know I'm going deep into the depth chart, but we know Saquon is the starter. We know Tank is the backup, and Tank should probably get 30-ish percent, 35% of the carries just to keep Saquon healthy going into the stretch of the season later on. But I want to see Dameon Pierce. He didn't play. I think he's hurt. I'm tired of seeing Will Shipley, personally. But also I'm tired of seeing Quez Watkins on the field. They need to stop with the Quez Watkins thing. Like, I get it. It's camp, but like, why was he running with the first team the other day at practice? The ball that Jalen threw got picked off that was targeted for Quez. Just stop with the Quez Watkins thing. But I want to see Dameon Pierce out there. I don't know. Again, not sure what's going on with him. I don't know if he's going to play. He didn't play on Saturday. It'd be nice to see him get some carries, see what he can do in this scheme. Because I think that he could potentially offer more than Will Shipley could. But at this rate, it looks like Shipley's going to make the team. But that's my guy on offense. On the defensive side of the ball, it's a great, great question. I'm going to go with Brandon George, right? The guy that they signed from that was injured last year with the Chiefs. They literally signed him, I think, Friday night, and he played on Saturday against the Ravens. His athletic score was off the charts. It was close to perfect. I think it was like 9.98 or something like that. I'm going to see what he can do, because he could be a guy that could produce on special teams. Obviously with Zach Ball, Jahad Campbell, Jeremiah Trotter, Smile Munden, he's not going to get a lot of PT, a lot of playing time on defense, but if he can make his mark on special teams and kind of build his role there and going into the future and potentially become the second string, third string linebacker, that could be good for him. But I want to see somebody like him kind of make a mark on special teams and get after the the returners, and when he gets out there on the field, get after the quarterback.
Yeah, just looking up Quez Watkins. Quez Watkins was the worst graded special teams player, and all he did was return kicks. So that just tells you all you need to know. And then, of course, Quez Watkins played 0 snaps he played snaps, but he had no pass go his way as a wide receiver. So I think that tells you all you need to know, that there wasn't even a pass go his way. He played 21 snaps. 18 of them were on passing downs. 3 of them were as a run blocker, and he didn't have a target go his way. So,
well, to be fair, though, the passing offense was really bad on Saturday.
It was really bad, but if it's really bad, you should be able to at least give Quez Watkins just one look. But I agree with you. I think, the Philadelphia Eagles front office stands by some guys, and Quez Watkins feels like one of those guys. Britton Covey, feels like one of those guys, and it just doesn't feel like those guys are meant to do anything more. And I've said it about Britton Covey I don't think he can be anything for this offense, and people have come back at me on social media and said, well, how could he be part of that with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith? And it's like, he's played Week 18 meaningless games and done almost nothing. So that tells you all you need to know. In the limited opportunity, you need to be able to stand out, and he hasn't been able to stand out in those instances. So defensively, for me, there's 2 names for me. It's Ty Robinson. I want to see more Ty Robinson. I want to see, can he make this roster? Can he add some depth to this defensive line? Because they ended up going out and adding David Blay, and clearly seeing that there might be a gap in this defensive line, interior defensive line, and a
David
need.
Blay made some plays too.
Blay made plays. Robinson made plays. It'll be interesting to see how they end up hashing that out, but I think that they're going to end up keeping 6-year interior defensive linemen. But what's it going to be? Hall, obviously, I think, Byron Young's a lock, but then after that, where Bernard's part of the discussion, Robinson, Gabe Hall, David Blay, who of those guys do you keep and how do you manage them from a roster perspective? And AJ Epinesa, I think he's making a run for that edge rusher position or depth edge rusher position. I think he makes the team too. I think he stands out over a guy like Arnold Adebike, even Keyshawn James Newbay.
I think Adebike makes the team as well. I do think that they're going to keep both of them.
I do. I agree. And I think the discussion comes down to a guy like Keyshawn James Newby and Joshua Waru and do those guys justify being kept in some form or fashion based on what they do? So it'll be interesting to see. But those are guys, and I mean, I feel bad because I there's just nothing about the secondary that excites me. And I think I saw enough that there's a need there. There's a need there. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't think another preseason game tells me any more about Mac McWilliams, Keely Ringo, or so on and so forth. And I know Jonathan Jones is there for the special teams purposes. He's an elite special teams guy. He's probably making the roster strictly for what he can bring to the special teams. But the other guys, I don't know how much I need to see more of from that perspective. There's a need there. And I think Howie saw it after this week. And I think he's going to see it more with another roster move after this week.
And I still think we have questions at the safety position. I did like, to an extent what I saw from was it Pooley. So we'll see if he continues to make strides. We know Akuba's a starter. Epps is most likely a starter. When they're in base, it's going to be Coop, but they're not going to be in base a lot. Who's going to be the backup safeties? Michael Carter has the inside track. I'm pretty sure he makes the squad as well. So we'll see if they go. Do they keep 3? Do they keep 4? And I do think that another safety on the roster will be another safety on the roster. He's just not on the roster right now. It'll be somebody else from a different team. All right, that was our look back at week 1 of the preseason and our look ahead to week 2 of the preseason against the Patriots. You're going to pick a winner, Connor? Or are we going to save that for? No, we don't have to pick a winner. It's preseason. Nobody cares. We will be back next week as the Eagles face the Cincinnati Bengals in their lone home preseason game on Friday night at the Link. Last time the Eagles played the Bengals, the Eagles played nobody. The Bengals went out there with their starters, and Jamar Chase kind of lit up Keely Ringo, which everybody seems to do. I know he had that interception, but I
still can't believe the amount of starters that teams put out there. Like there was an instance. I was watching the Pat McAfee show today, and they showed quarterbacks just getting lit up, and the amount of times they said the amount of times they said a starting quarterback's name and then the hit that they took was, I'm like, there's no way I would risk that. Jeremiah Love, like 18 carries, no way would I be. And then he goes off with a high ankle sprain. Yeah. Exactly. Like why? And I get it. It's exciting to see him and see what he can do, but it's like that's fine and all. But after 8 or 9 carries, you get what you get. This guy's special. You drafted him this way. He's going to be special. But I'm happy we have a.
That's also a rookie head coach too, and not really knowing what he.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy we have a common sense head coach. I'll say that.
Exactly, and a lot of people complain, but yeah, all he does, him and Jalen Hurts, all they do is go out there and win. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour. We'll be back next week with a quick review of the Patriots game and the joint practices and get you set for the Eagles-Bengals in the final preseason game before we get that stretch to week 1, September 13th, the Eagles hosting the Washington Commanders. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHero54. Follow the Eagles Pinpull Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts at Eagles Pin Pull Network. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Let me get some practice here. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby.